right. Hello. Oops. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may happen to be. I am Tad. I happen to be in California. It is 1 o'clock, actually 1:01 in the morning. And yeah, that's the news from here. I am going to be reading, and I will be reading till approximately 2, so that's like an hour, depending on where you are. You can figure it out for yourself. And before I say anything else, was there something that I needed to mention? Oh yeah, the hazards of doing a live broadcast of any kind. The dogs are very frisky tonight and in need of a lot of reassurance. So there will be many moments where you may wonder why my attention is suddenly shifted to one side or the other, and it's probably because I'm being nudged by a dog. This in itself is not an issue, but the fact that I've got zillions of cords hanging off of this table that I'm using as a desk, and that Lemon in particular tries to get up on my lap, and 50 pounds of dog doing that through a bunch of cables that are only lightly attached to various things could cause trouble. So just to let you know ahead of time, there may be moments of panic and whoa. But what can I tell you? Anyway, been an interesting week. Had a good time most of the time. Missing Deborah, of course, who is not here. But the most important thing is that we have all survived so far. Me, dogs, cats. Have had one of our young people has come back into town to visit, which has been lovely. And I have enjoyed that. What else? And just finishing up, I've got a couple of more days to finish up the last of the copy edited manuscript for Splintered Sun, which I'm pretty pleased with. I think it's good. I think I've chopped out a lot of unnecessary verbiage, and while retaining the most important stuff, and made a few things more clear, because there's a lot of geographical changes of scenery in this book, and some key set pieces that you need to understand. It'll be easier when there are maps. That, I think, is the basic news on that one, although we may start doing something slightly different with this book, which is the publishers are worried that my indexes are something that puts off ordinary non-genre hardcore readers. So we may have to move the index to, I'll find some good place to put it on the internet where it'll be free and available to everybody, which actually might work even better, because then people can just leave it open or print it off or something and have access to it. No, I wouldn't print it. It's probably about 20 pages, but you can just drag it onto a document of some kind, into a document, and have it that way. Anyway, that's just me talking off the top of my head. I'm still not 100% sure any of that is going to happen, but that's what has been introduced as a subject of conversation. So let me think, what else? Yeah, just mostly then. Yeah, just working, feeding animals, cleaning up after animals, watering plants, all the things that I have to do that keep me busy during the day. The work obviously is the largest part of it, but it feels like that's not by any means when my day comes to an end. When I finish working on my manuscript, there's still many hours of other things, giving dogs medicine and stuff like that. Anyway, not complaining. Happy to be here. Happy that my beloved is in the country of her birth, getting to spend time with her family there. So that's all good. Anyway, so I am now going to see if anybody has shown up, then dropped a comment so I can say hello to them. So let us go look what we've got. Oh, and the first thing off the bat that I see is my mother-in-law. And she says, all is well over here and your wife is fine. Yes, she certainly is. No, thank you, my darling. Lovely to see you. Thank you for checking in. That's my wonderful mother-in-law, Hazel. And I'm glad to hear that everybody is well there. Everybody is at least alive here. And none of the animals have run away, and we're hanging in. So you can pass that along to my beloved. And who else is here? Penny Davies. Hello, Penny. Good to see you. Christy Sanders checking in. And oh my God, yes, it's Easter. Happy Easter to all who celebrate. Excuse me for not remembering. Petra also says Happy Easter, and she and Christina are having breakfast in Berlin. That sounds romantic in the kind of world trotting, sense of mystery and adventure. Mark Redmond checking in from Yorkshire, and he says, Yorkshire's all weathers mixed into one, sunshine, overcast, rain, and rainbows. And there is Winter. Winter is checking in, one of my dear friends, one of my over the dateline friends. So good to see you, Winter, checking in, I assume, from New Zealand, probably Wellington, but any which way, good to see you. Jeremy Ehrman, hello, good to see you. Yes, the cats are keeping an eye on me. They're probably just as grateful I'm not down there making as much racket as I usually do, and I still get down to give them all the things they expect, the treats and the food and all that, and pets and scritches. And the fact that I'm not down there working probably doesn't bother them at all. It probably just makes it easier for them to nap, which is pretty much their job. Nicole, hello, Nicole. Good to see you, and lovely to have you with us. And I think that's the people who've checked in so far. So very soon now, I will start reading. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I need to tell people about. Not really. As I said, there are just dogs around me begging for attention all the time. But that's okay, because I like dogs and I don't mind giving them attention, except when I'm trying to do a live broadcast, Mr. Johnny. Yeah, that got his attention. What? I'm just standing here with my paw on your foot. Anyway, so, well, yeah, I don't think there really is anything. I'm trying to think. It's just, it's a weird, I'm sure those of you in long-term partnerships, marriages, whatever, anything of that sort, know that when one of the partners is gone, unless it's something that you do, it happens so regularly that, like if one of them is in the military or something and have to go abroad for long stretches. But otherwise, it's like, it is very mysterious and strange how the whole environment changes just by the subtraction of one person, especially weird when it's only a two-person household. I suppose it makes sense. Yeah, no, because that's half the people that are gone. But it definitely has set the dogs off. Now, of course, that part of that is because Lemon is particularly attached to Deborah. And Lemon has been extremely needy and, climbing on me and sticking her head in my face going, is it okay? Are we all going to die? What happened to the mama? So it's a bit odd. But I'm normally the one who's on the road. And so I know Deb has had to get used to this, but I am normally on the road. And when I'm on the road, obviously I don't have time. Well, I mean, I miss my family, and I miss Deborah, and I miss the animals and all that stuff. Well, they're kind of the part of the family. But, generally each day when I'm traveling is so busy and starts early in the morning and usually involves travel, sometimes for hours. And then there's 2 or 3 events when I get to wherever I'm going, and I get back at night and usually check in with Deb and have a quick debriefing of what's gone on for her and what's going on for me, which at that point is usually just a crushing need for some sleep. So the reverse, of course, is true. When I'm the one here, and it's been interesting, trying to say, okay, so this is what it feels like when you have several weeks of only one person in the household. And as I said, the dogs do not like it. They do not like it. Dogs are fundamentally, in my experience, very conservative creatures. Again, this is my experience, but it has certainly seemed to play out over the years. They like things that are regular. They like things that are expected. And they certainly let me know when the time has come for whatever it is, a meal, a treat, a trip outside, a WALK, making sure I'm not getting anybody excited, whatever the case may be. They expect it at those times, they want it at those times, and that kind of regularity seems to make dogs feel more comfortable. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that a lot of the rest of dogs' lives, they have this very powerful urge to have a job and to do something for the humans they live with. And as a result, our dogs basically have now both devolved to the status of guard dogs. So their jobs, as they see it, is to bark at things, to let us know, oh my God, there's this guy in a UPS truck. He must be a criminal. Bark, 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 bark. Did you get that? If not, I'll do it again. Bark, 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 bark. Or whatever it may be, right? It's like, somebody's coming home. Yeah, it looks like somebody who lives here, but it could be, a burglar. And bark, bark, bark. Hello, everybody listen. Bark, bark, bark. Burglars coming, all that kind of stuff. So that's pretty much what they do. They don't have another job. We don't have any sheep to herd. We don't have any badgers to send them down tunnels to capture. And as a result, I think dogs are kind of in existential crisis if they're not working dogs who have an actual job. I understand. I have to work too. Otherwise, I feel like I'm not fulfilling my destiny. But one of the things you can do to make up for that existential despair is to give them a nice, orderly life with the occasional surprise treat. And in fact, I think that's a pretty good recipe for most of us humans too. A nice, ordered life with occasional pleasant surprises. Gustave Flaubert, who, wrote all kinds of amazing books, once said, you have to be a bourgeois in your private life to be a revolutionary in your art. Now, I don't know if that's entirely true. I'm not claiming it is, but I think that there is a modicum of truth under it, which is that we need some order to really feel free, right? We as humans, dogs as dogs, you need some order so that you can then shape your freedom around it. I think that's one of the reasons I like genre fiction, is because that's exactly what you have. You have a deal essentially with your readers that you will give them some elements of what the genre considers to be important. In my case, it's monsters and adventures and all that stuff. But if you have fulfilled that part of the contract, and I've said this before, this is not new probably to any of you, but if you fulfill that part of the contract, then the readers, or wherever medium you are addressing them in, the audience will go with you. They will grant you that freedom and actually enjoy the fact that you are trying to do other things and to, whatever it might be, deepen the character development or make the plots even more baroque and strange and surprising, or whatever it is that you're trying, or just simply to bring in other concepts, existential concepts that would go in any kind of fiction, or most kinds of nonfiction actually, but existential concepts that, as long as you give the readers, my joke has always been, as long as every 5 pages something tries to eat the main character, you're golden. The readers will be patient with you, as long as it's a good trying to eat the main character. You can't just slough it off, and you got to treat it with high seriousness and real intensity. But once you do that, it is my experience that the readers are very willing to let you try other things, to follow you where you want to go, and all of that. You just have to give them the things that they like that genre for in the first place. Anyway, okay, I've babbled enough. It's 15 minutes after. It's time to get to the reading. So let me just check back here in case there's anybody else I should say hello to. Yes, I see several have showed up. There is, after Nicole, we had Kristen. Hello, Kristen. Doesn't the dog count as a person? Of course the dog counts as a person. I was just making a cladistic what's the word I want? Separation between dogs and humans. But yes, they're persons too. Anybody who's a dog person knows that. Stephen Watson, hello, good to see you. Storm Dave is still raging where Stephen is. Surely they could have chosen a more portentous name. Yes, they could have. Like, what could they call it? Storm Rocky, Storm Spike, Storm Bruiser. Yeah, they could have done better. Thank you, Petra, for the compliment on the shirt. Deborah gave this to me. I have many beautiful shirts Deborah gave me, and most of the time I am in black t-shirts. Not because I don't love the colorful shirts she gives me, but more because I'm a messy eater. And, also I just wear black all the time because then you don't have to worry about whether things match or not. And especially I got into the habit when I was on tour a lot. You just pack everything black and then you don't worry about it. Anyway, who else is here? Alexandra Lirop. Hello, good to see you, Alexandra. Juliet, checking in from Sunderland. Aha, a Mackin. I believe that's still considered a polite and descriptive term and not pejorative. But anyway, lovely to have you with us, Juliet. And there's Chris Fobb again. Hello, Chris. Good to see you, buddy. Always a pleasure. Okay, so all of that said, and all those people said hello too, I am now going to go read. And just to bring you up to date, we're getting near the very end of where the electronic version, the digital version of the book I have here says 88%, so we're obviously getting close to the ending. And what has been happening is that Bobby has gone to Sam's third way planet, which turns out to be basically an Earth without human beings, so a pristine Earth. And there he has found that Anaita came and attacked the people that she herself had brought to the place in the first place. And one of the reasons that Bobby has come to realize that, or at least to believe that is the reason she made this place in the first place, is because you can take the goddess out of her God-worshipping place, but you cannot take the goddess out of her, even when you make her an angel, and that she still wants to be worshipped, or needs to be worshipped, and that's why she put this place together in the first place. A hangover, if you will, from her goddess days. Anyway, so they have made a plan, and they have gone to the house that was the only thing left standing in the area after Anaita's attack, when she burned everything else down for, acres around. They have gone to the house with a plan in mind that we don't really know yet. And Anaita has shown up because they have opened what Sam calls the going to Mecca box, and they have deliberately spoken in front of it so that she would hear their voices, because it is essentially tuned to her, and they would therefore give themselves away. And she has shown up with her 2 lions, except they're not lions, but they are giant cats. And that's where we are. So I'm going to start back about a couple of paragraphs. Deloriel. Her voice was honey, love, and regret. The anger of our last meeting was gone as if it had never been. Why do you fight me? Why didn't you just do as you were told? She turned to Sam. All your friend had to do was bring you back, and we would have been merciful. We? Sam asked. You mean you and the person you pretended to be? She looked amused, almost. Pretended? Do you mean the guise I wore to recruit you? There was no pretense, only secrecy. Didn't I do what I said? Isn't this world beautiful? Didn't I make it just as I promised and give it to the ones you brought to me? Then burn the shit out of it and killed a bunch of them? I said. Not exactly what one expects from an angel. Not what usually happens in paradise. Yeah, said Clarence, but he didn't say it very loud. Still, he was standing in there. He hadn't faced her the first time, of course. Maybe that helped. Why are you such a troublemaker, Deloriel? Anaita did not sound angry. In fact, she sounded exactly like a mother, worried by a foolish child who won't learn. You have been a thorn in my side since the beginning. So unnecessary. I didn't do anything to you. You sent that stabby maniac after me. You've done nothing but try to destroy me. And you've tried just as hard to destroy my work, she said, but still calm, still more in sadness than in anger. You and that report you made. We should have had months more to build here, years of Earth time before the others found out about this place. Instead, you upset everything. You silly little creature, ruined a plan whose glory and beauty you can't even conceive. You dare to complain to me about what I did? I should have incinerated you the first time you interfered with my project. In fact, I should have done it earlier, at the very start. Which made no sense, since other than the report, which I had to make because of the heat I was getting from my superiors when I found out about Ed Walker's missing soul, I'd done nothing to her. Seemed to me that my involvement had caused trouble for Sam, who'd been the one to recruit Walker, far more than it had Anaita. Or did she mean something else by that? At the very start. Not that it mattered now. I could think about it later if I was still alive and my thinking parts hadn't burned up. Look, just leave these people alone. Leave this place and Sam alone, and I'll go back with you. She looked at me for a long time. It seemed long, anyway, as we stood in the fluttering snow. Then let out a laugh like a bird's song, haunting, sweet, and very, very brief. Imagine you're going to offer me a bargain. You, Deloriel, who have done so much to spoil triumphs you are too ill-formed to appreciate. I suddenly remembered something Heinrich Himmler had once said in an address to his SS men, who were weary and horrified by implementing the final solution. That we should have to do such things and still remain decent men, he told them. That is true heroism. Anaita really was insane. I had never thought an angel could be, but she was. She believed herself to be so obviously right that everything else no longer mattered. In fact, everything else barely registered. Fine, I said. No deal. So come and get me. As you wish, Deloriel, but I will not dirty myself again with you. I don't want your filthy blood staining my raiment. She dropped the leashes. The cats leaped forward. By the time they had taken a couple of steps, they were growing, and as they raced toward us across the snow and ash, they kept on doing it. Eyes like glowing amber, big as lions, then bigger, they sprang across the ground so quickly I could scarcely have counted to 3, even if I had enough air in my lungs and spit in my mouth to do it. The nearest one leaped, a huge gray-brown shadow, even as I took my first stumbling steps backward. It crashed to the ground in front of me, skidding through ash. Then it was gone into the black rectangular hole we had dug. As it fell onto the sharpened stakes at the bottom of the pit, the cat's initial snarl of surprise exploded into a maddened howl of agony. The second cat was already in midair. It jumped easily over the exposed trap, but when it landed, it was slightly off to the side. So instead of the second trap swallowing it, the covering of boards stolen from the house, along with scavenged branches, fell inward as planned, but the monstrous cat still had enough solid ground under its paws to scramble to safety. Safety for it, of course, not so safe for me. Those were the only 2 pits we'd had time to dig. I wasn't thinking much about pits or digging at that moment, though, because the second cat leaped again as soon as it found its footing. Something like 1,000 pounds of claws, teeth, and rock-hard muscle flying through the air toward me. I couldn't even get my spear into the dirt to brace it before the thing hit me. We rolled over and over, and although my head hit the ground so hard that for a moment I didn't quite know where I was, I could definitely tell that a mouthful of sharp teeth was about to tear my face off, and that I no longer had a spear in my hand. Then the massive jaws snapped down, and the world disappeared into a deep, foul, and extremely slobbery darkness. Chapter 45. How a World Ended. Okay, before I explain to you what happened while my face was being chewed off by Felis mythicus giganticus, let me tell you the good news. I was certain now that Anaita's power really did have limits. Knowing that wasn't a lot of help right then, what with the fangs and the drool and the huge jaws crushing my skull, but it meant that we actually had a chance. Not a good one, not even a statistically significant one, but a chance. See, nobody, at least nobody like me, actually knows where the high angels get their power. Direct from the highest is what we're told, and that may well be true, but I'm pretty sure there's more to the story. The power is rationed, apparently by rank, and the higher up the ladder you go, the more pure force the angels in question can bring to the dance. Someone like Anaita, one of the chief powers of the third sphere, could bring a great deal of it to bear where she wanted, on heaven, on earth, or even here on Kainos. In fact, she had a great deal more freedom to use power on Kainos because the place pretty much belonged to her. But this was the kicker. She didn't have the right to that power. So, Anaita could call on far greater resources than she needed, far more than Sam, Clarence, and I could ever hope to match. If angelic power were water, she had a fire hose the size of the Holland Tunnel, and we had squirt guns. But just like someone using a fire hose, the water had to come from somewhere, and so did whatever heavenly reserves she was drawing on. More important, she had to disguise the fact that she was using it because any massive deployment of angelic force was going to attract notice upstairs. I'd been suspicious that she destroyed such a small portion of Kainos during her scorched earth hissy fit. Yes, she wanted to preserve the place, but she never really found out whether I was there or not, and she hadn't managed to capture Sam either, who was at least as much of a threat to her secrets as I was. That suggested that she didn't dare use that level of force for very long. Yeah, she could come down and rain destruction like a helicopter gunship, but only for so long before someone back in heaven was going to start wondering what she was doing. Which explained why she'd mostly worked through others, sending Smiler after me instead of just obliterating me with a snap of her fingers, and using Sam and the other renegade angels to do the groundwork of populating Kainos. The big cats were the final giveaway. The monsters were the manifestations of Anaita's power, yes, but she was using them because they were a comparatively thrifty way to get rid of us. Create something with hunting instincts, muscles, talons, and fangs, then turn it loose, and you get much more bang for your buck than just vaporizing everything in front of you. The fang-toothed kitty, tasting my face at that moment, might have been nasty, but it was actually a sign of weakness. Anaita was trying to take us down on the cheap because she needed to keep what she was doing hidden from heaven. I promise you, I didn't spend as much time thinking about all that at the time as I did just now describing it. The cat beast had me down, but it hadn't yet found a way to get its jaws squarely around my skull, and I was doing my best to hang on to my facial features, hitting, kicking, squirming, rolling. Still, several seconds of that hadn't done me any good, and I was already running out of strength. I pulled the knife I'd stashed in my boot, wishing really hard that it could be something longer, stronger, and sharper than a leaf of flint with string wrapped around one end to make a handle. I knew I wasn't going to make any major puncture wounds with it, so I just started slashing at everything I could reach, trying to cause pain. This might have been the imaginary sort of giant cat, but until I learned otherwise, I was going to assume that its nose and mouth and eyes were its weak spots, like almost any other predator. Sadly, I seemed to be learning otherwise, or else I was just pissing it off. It bit down on my hand hard enough to make me drop the stone knife, and when I punched its nose with my other hand, it only reared back, mouth wide and teeth very obvious, ready to go for my throat. Then something hit it. Crack! That's the noise it made, like someone throwing a large rock against the side of a concrete building. The cat reeled and stumbled back a step, one half of its face suddenly a different shape, an oozing gray stuff that might have been blood. Clarence swung his club again, a stone the size of a volleyball tied into the fork of a thick branch, but only managed to hit the beast on the shoulder this time. It shook its head and snarled. One of its eyes was gone, or at least lost in torn tissue and broken bone, but the cat was nowhere near dead. Clarence tried to yank me away by my collar and only yanked me onto my ass instead, but I'd found my spear and just managed to lift it high enough to pierce the creature's throat as it came at me. The force of its leap knocked me over again, but the spear had struck home. The cat twisted and contorted itself, trying to get a paw on the stick, wagging in its neck. I grabbed at the spear, got lucky, then braced myself and tried to force the beast toward the second pit. But even with half its head crushed and a spurting hole in its windpipe, Godzilla Garfield was still intent on killing me. One rear paw slid over the edge of the pit into empty space, but the thing began to push back hard against the spear, as if it knew what I planned. So I let go of the spear and threw myself at the giant cat, hitting the creature low in its body, right in the ribs. My weight and momentum pushed it, flailing and snarling over the edge. I went with it, but most of my body landed on the rim of the pit, and Clarence caught my leg. It may not have been a real cat. It may have bled gray, but it died just like any desperate, angry living thing on those sharpened stakes at the bottom of the hole. Not that I spent long watching it. "Where's Sam?" I gasped as I used Clarence's arm to pull myself back to safety. "In the house." Clarence had reached some kind of battle clarity, exhaustion and fear canceling each other. His voice was like a robot's. "Then let's fucking run," I suggested. I stole one look back at Anaita, who did not appear to be too upset by the destruction of her pets. Made sense if they were things she'd just made, but it didn't help my plan any. I wanted her angry, not to the point of burning down the house and all the rest of us with one pissed-off gesture, but close to it. Clarence and I dug across the drifting snow and black ash toward the building. Luckily for us, Anaita felt no need to hurry. "Duck!" I shouted at Clarence as we burst through the door. I grabbed his head and bent him down to keep him from getting tangled. "She's coming!" I shouted to everyone else. Not that they needed to be told. The door we had dragged shut behind us simply flew apart, with a snap, snap, snap chorus of broken timbers and a woof of displaced air. Then the angel of moisture glided through, right into the web of ropes and rattles the pilgrims of Kainos had strung in the entranceway. As she thrashed her way angrily through this minor distraction, several Kainos men and women stood up from their hiding places on the second-floor landing, screaming wordless battle cries, shrieks of pent-up terror, and letting their arrows fly. None of them had been living in this place long enough to become marksmen, but enough of the wooden arrows struck Anaita to make her cry out in rage. She ripped loose those that pierced her, flinging them away as though they were no more than burrs and stickers from a walk in the country. As the archers fired, others all over the house began pounding on the walls with tree limbs and shaking their rattles, making so much noise that even I lost track for a moment of where I was and what I was doing. Then a chance arrow struck Anaita right between the eyes. If she'd been human, it would have killed her. But, of course, she wasn't. Still, it got her attention. She turned to look in the direction of the archers, her face contorting in a mask of fury. Then the stairs leading up to the second floor simply flew apart, like an explosion without the explosion. The pieces of wood hurtled in all directions. One of the larger fragments hit Clarence in the leg and knocked him flying. Several of the Kainos pilgrims went down and didn't get up. But Anaita's sudden attack on the screaming archers and other noisemakers had snapped me back into gear. Even as stair boards turned into wooden shrapnel, I dropped to my knees and crawled across the main room toward the wooden box where the mecha cube, and something else, was hidden. This was the crucial bit, and if the thing wasn't there waiting for me, well, Anaita would have the leisure to shred us into component molecules and spread us around her invented world like dandelion seeds in a tornado. And I would go wherever angels wind up when a very powerful, very angry, higher angel decides to dispose of them. Still on my hands and knees, with broken boards raining down all around me, I reached up and opened the doors of the cabinet, then felt along the inside just in front of the mecha cube. It was there. Anaita had brushed aside the distractions of the doorway like they were cobwebs, shredding the hand-carved rattles and the rope curtains knotted full of sticks and clattering stones. She was crackling with energy. It bent the air around her, and she had a look on her face that I wouldn't have wanted to see on a 5-year-old having a tantrum, let alone on one of the most powerful beings in the universe. "Wait!" I shouted and scrambled to my feet. She turned to me, and the anger simply vanished. She became cold as a statue. "You." That was all she said. I knew I had perhaps a second, maybe two, so I held up the thing I'd taken from the cabinet. "Just thought you should see this first," I said, showing her the horn. Cold as a statue? No, colder, like an ice storm turning the sky black, like the front of a glacier just before it rolled over you and ground you into the earth. "What," she said, "is that?" "This? Come on, you know what this is." I hefted the bloodshot ivory thing in my hand, bounced it once or twice. It weighed a little more than I would have expected. Not as much as a curved 4-inch piece of ordinary horn, more like a petrified souvenir. The whole universe had come down to something the size of a paperweight. "This is Elgor's horn. I found it, and he's coming for it." And just like that, Elgor was there. No burning line in the air, no dramatic blast of light and smoke and brimstone. He was just there, in his Kenneth Vald face and body, dressed as though he was going to receive the Entrepreneur of the Decade award from some grateful civic body. "Greetings, angel of moisture," he said. Anaita looked at him, then at me, then at the horn I held, cradled in my hand. "What nonsense is this? What are you doing here, Elgor?" "Don't I have a right to be here?" He smiled. "Didn't I help you build this place?" She didn't smile back. "You and I made a bargain, Grand Duke. Would you interfere now? Are you very certain you wish to do that?" "Who's interfering? I've just come to have some of my property returned. Angel Deloriel, I believe you have something of mine." Impossible. That was all she said, but there was a lot going on behind that single stony word and that mask of chilly indifference. Right here, and I flipped him the horn. I watched it spin through the air toward him. Every living creature in that big room watched it too. All the pilgrims cowering on the stairs, even Anaita herself. He caught it with the ease of a man reaching out his hand to see if it was raining. Then it dissolved into a cloud of starry light, and Eligor absorbed it. For half a second, everything seemed frozen. Anaita hadn't moved, but it seemed like something was heating up inside her. I could feel a pressure beating out from her, a force that could devastate everything in the church-shaped house. Impossible, she said again, but she sounded less certain now, maybe even confused. Conspiracy? I held my breath. The next few seconds would tell. If everything went right, then maybe, just maybe. Don't, mistress. It's a trick. Ed Walker half ran, half tumbled down the stairs from the second level. He caught the string of his bow on a newel post and, instead of untangling it, simply let it go. The bow sprang back, swung hard around the post, and clattered to the steps, just as he reached ground level and threw himself down on his face in front of Anaita. Ed, no! Someone shouted from the upper floor, a cry of genuinely astonished horror. Mistress, you built this place for us, not these others. Walker's words came fast and breathless. Not these so-called angels who brought us nothing but death and destruction. He looked at me and glared. Don't fall for their tricks. Don't take our home away because of them. It's not true. That's not the horn you had. That's Eligor's other horn. He and the angel worked this up together. It's a trick. You shit, I said. You treacherous little shit. Shut up. Walker didn't even look at me now, just stared up at Anaita. She seemed even more like a statue, something impossibly fine and rare, with supplicants appropriately ranged at her feet. One supplicant, anyway, Edward Lyons Walker, the unofficial leader of the Pilgrims, the man who hadn't liked our plan from the beginning. Spare us, mistress, spare us, and spare Kainos. Dear me, said Eligor, you seem to have rolled snake eyes, Delorio. I'd done everything I could. There really wasn't anything left but to fall down on my knees. I'd wanted to do that for a while anyway. I was exhausted, a bloody mess from the wounds the big cat had given me, and I'd kept going this long on pure adrenaline. Okay, I said. You win. Anaita looked at me. I swear she had never looked more beautiful than at that moment, a frozen, perfect, immortal beauty. It was hard even to look at her. If she'd been a huge rock, mariners would happily have steered right into her, foundered and drowned while singing her praises. Of course, she said. There was never any doubt. Did you really think I was foolish enough to hide the other horn here on Kainos? I was so very tired. I admit it did cross my mind. You must have thought you were quite clever. I can imagine your logic. Where would she keep it, this oh so important object? In heaven? Of course not. In hell or on earth? Why make it easy for her enemies to search for it? Ah, but here on Kainos, the place that can be only reached with her permission. Or mine, said Eligor. He sounded like he was enjoying this. You may go away now, horseman. Anaita wouldn't look right at him. I don't know if that was because she was scared of him or because she was trying to resist the urge to blast him into sparkly cinders. Unless you mean to challenge me, as you already conspired against me. Elagor laughed. My dear, you give yourself too much credit. Challenge? Without the permission of our masters? That would violate the Tartarian Convention and several others. As for conspiracy, my little friend Deluriel asked for a favor. I granted it to him because it amused me to do so. I, of course, had no idea what he planned to do with my horn. Of course. Anaita bit the words off and spat them at him. I couldn't do anything. This was going all kinds of bad, and I was helpless to change it. The two of them were talking, like they had just bumped into each other in front of the laundromat and were catching up on old times. Seriously, though, said Elagor, that horn must have been a worry. I had the feather in my safe in my office. Couldn't have been more protected, but someone took it away from me anyway. And I had the devil of a time getting it back, if you'll excuse the expression. So, the horn isn't here, I said, forcing myself into their little tete-a-tete. So I guessed wrong. It was worth a try. There were moments I almost had respect for you, Deluriel. Anaita had returned to her calm, emotionless voice. The weird thing is, I could still hear bits of the childlike tones that we all knew. Oh, excuse me. The weird thing is, I could still hear bits of the childlike tones that we all knew, that soothing, sweet voice still submerged in the goddess persona, like a toddler fallen down a well. But ultimately, you were a mistake from the beginning. I should never have let you continue to exist. She shook her head. Did you really think I would keep the horn somewhere you or some other sneak thief could reach it? Hide it in my house? In a museum? Or here? She laughed, and I heard something that I hadn't heard before, even in her rages, the sound of something that had nothing human in it. Since the Grand Duke and I made our bargain, the horn has never been out of my keeping. Never. An army of angels could not have taken it from me, or an army of demons. She placed her hand over her heart. The spot began to glow. You, with your sad little tricks. Samariel hid my feather in a hidden pocket, folded into time. How clever! Did it never occur to you that if he could perform such a trick, with a mere fraction of my power, I might be capable of things you could not even grasp? And then she reached into her own chest, as effortlessly as reaching into a coat to pull out a wallet. A moment later, she withdrew her hand, sparkling, shining with a sickly pale glare. A horn lay in her palm. All I could do was stare at it. If I hadn't been yards away from her, I might have been able to reach out and touch it, but it was hopelessly beyond my grasp. Here, annoying angel, is this what you wanted? To buy back your demon sweetheart? Why? I said. If you knew all this already, why go to so much trouble to frame me? Frame you? You have not been accused of half of what you've actually done, Deluriel. And as for what you've done to me, by my divinity, if you spent eternity in the lowest pits of hell, you couldn't possibly pay for that. You've spoiled so much. Even when you were alive, you were a thorn in my side. My eyes slowly lifted from the horn to her face. when I was alive. But now the loose ends will be cut off or burned away." She lifted her other hand, the one without the horn. It had a strange waviness to it, as if I saw it from several directions at the same time or through thick glass. "Horseman, you have no business here, so depart. You have my feather, I still have your horn. Our bargain is still in place." "Oh, I'll be going, I promise," said Eligor, grinning. "But I confess I find this fascinating. I'll watch a bit longer, but I won't interfere." "As you wish." She looked down at Ed Walker, still prostrate on the floor. "And you have done well, little pilgrim. Kainos will survive. But you will behave yourselves from now on and treat me with the respect your creator deserves." "I knew it," I said loudly. Anaita turned just the slightest bit toward me. "Silence. You are no longer important, Deloriel. You are the first loose end that will be trimmed." She lifted her hand toward me, spreading her fingers, so I started talking, fast. "Yeah, whatever," I said. "I knew it would all come down to the same old shit. It's not even real evil, it's just selfishness." I pulled myself up into a half crouch. I was still too far away to do anything but get burned to ash, but if you gotta go, you might as well do it upright. You actually think that what you want is more important than what anyone else wants, and you think that having power proves it. The last important angel who fell, the adversary, that was what he thought too. People act like it's some kind of terrifying, incomprehensible evil. Evil! But it's not. It's the same greed you see in a sandbox full of children. "Give me that. I want all the toys. Mine." "I told you to be silent, Deloriel." A little heat crept back into her voice. "You cannot even grasp what I've created here. The mistakes of the highest. I've fixed them. It was worth every death, every deception. With you and your friends gone, heaven will never find this place. Little angel, spiteful little angel, you cannot grasp the beauty, the perfection of what I've made." I stood. It was painful. "And you failed to grasp a few important things yourself, my lady. For one thing, everything you've just said has gone straight to heaven, because the lines of communication have been open this whole time." I pointed to the mecha cube, which had at some point begun to glow in its open cabinet, a thin but vibrant pale violet blue, like the first shift from dawn to daytime sky. "In fact, I believe you've just made what's called a full confession." Her entire face changed, twisting in fury that even Eligor might not have been able to match. "What? Oh, and one other thing." I'd been wondering what had kept him so long, but there Sam was, standing just behind her. "This." But instead of simply knocking the horn from her hand, as we'd planned, Sam reached through Anaita with the god glove. I shouted out in surprise. He wasn't supposed to use it anywhere near her, but my voice was lost in the sudden wail of anger and shock from Anaita as Sam's glowing hand forced its way through her body from behind, making her writhe like a hooked fish. No, an electric eel sparking and discharging, then knocked the horn out of her grasp. It bounced across the floor, a simple object apparently obeying simple laws of physics, and landed only a yard from me. "You!" she shrieked, turning to see Sam still caught with his glowing hand sunken in her body. She did something I couldn't quite make out, lashing out with her arm. There was a burst of white light, a great crack of heat and sound, and Sam went flying across the room. She staggered, but pulled herself upright again, looking around as if for her real enemy, someone more significant than a mere advocate angel. Traitors! Thieves! By now I had the horn in my hand. I turned to Eligor, who was watching the whole thing with a gleeful expression. You want this? I want Kaz. Throw it to me. Not until I have her. Don't fuck with me now, horseman. No tricks. I want her, the real thing, the Countess, just like you promised. Little angel, he said, you are no fun. A moment later, Kaz appeared, pale hair flying as she tumbled to the floor. She lay on her side, gasping. It sure looked like her, and there was nothing else I could do to make certain before Anaita turned us all into ashes. I tossed him the horn. It flew end over end across the room, but before it even landed in Eligor's hand, it was peeling apart into flecks of light, being absorbed back into the Grand Duke's person. For a moment, I thought I even saw his real face, horns now proudly in place once more. That's all I'll say about it. Then the Vald face returned. And now I'll let you have the rest of your fun, he said, because things are about to get crowded. He vanished. Kaz didn't. I couldn't really enjoy it, though, because a very, very unhappy Anaita was only a few feet away from me. Suddenly, light began to stream down from above. The roof and upper floors of the house peeled apart and began flying away up into the sky, and as they rose, I could see 1,000 bright, winged shapes falling down toward us through the swirling snow. Something hit me, smashed me to the floor. Anaita stood over me, her beautiful face now something else entirely. First, what you love, then you, she said, and every word was a serpentine hiss. She reached out her hand, the invisible air rippling and bulging around it, and then flung something toward Kaz, where she lay on the floor. But something else got there first. Clarence, who had already been limping toward her, dragged my beloved out of the way just before the entire wall behind her burst into a foam of molecules. Clarence, bless him, didn't even look back, but kept dragging her out the front door. I saw Kaz look up just before she slid out of sight, and for the first time, she saw me. Her eyes went wide. Then the room was full of moving lights, of whispering, half-visible wings and beautiful glowing shadows. I heard Anaita shriek, and then I heard that shriek get smaller and smaller. I turned. Where she had been a dark, unreflecting shape like a huge dark gem now stood. A prison, I supposed, a casket, I really, really hoped. And that's where I'm going to stop because we've got a bit more that I will save for tomorrow night. And yeah, and there's no point in, because there's still another chapter or so after this, so there's no point in forging on ahead. And it's just about 2 o'clock anyway. So, all that said, and everybody having been checked in and said hello to, and et cetera, et cetera. And Suzanne showed up. Suzanne Owen, hello. Lovely to see you. Mr. Mark Craigbaum was here, and I didn't even realize that he checked in earlier. Well, hello, Mr. Mark. Okay, so anyway, at this point, I am going to wrap it up. I am going to go and let a sad, sad little dog climb into bed with me. Actually, she ain't that little. She's like 50 pounds, and she is just solid, like she's made out of teak or something. She's so solid that when she's lying in my part of the bed and I'm trying to move her, it is like a major job. I mean, it's a major job. I have to like literally get down on my hands and knees to shove her out of the way. She's so solid and so compact and heavy. Anyway, enough dog talk. Thank you all for joining me. As always, it's been a huge pleasure. I will return at 7 p.m. Later today, which is tomorrow for me. And we will finish up Bobby Dollar, and I may start something new. I have an idea for something slightly unusual to read next. But until that time, please, first off, thank you so much for joining me. Take good care of yourselves, take good care of your loved ones, and keep an eye out for the people around you who might need a helping hand, kind word, couple of bucks, whatever the case. Just be aware. We all need help at some point, and we all need each other. So, thank you again. Peace, be well, and I will see you very, very soon.